Hi, I'm Matthew Proctor. I've been doing marketing consulting for brands like Tiffany's and Procter & Gamble, and I've run in-house content marketing teams for blitzscaling startups like Homelight, and I'm here to answer your marketing questions. What do successful brands do right? They'll have a very clear and cohesive mission that says exactly to the entire organization, like, here's who we are and why we exist and what we're trying to do. In marketing speak, that's often called an elevator pitch or a value proposition. They'll have that really nailed down, and everyone from the CEO all the way down the chain to the most entry-level person will have that hammered into them. And then another one that I think successful brands will do right is they will empower their team to make decisions and take ownership of those decisions. To be a really successful brand, you got to kind of move fast, especially in this day and age. You got to be pretty flexible. You got to be willing to experiment. And if you're blocking everything behind, a ton of gatekeepers or a ton of committees or, just tons of bureaucracy, that can really slow you down and make it harder to compete. How do brands accidentally make themselves boring? Sometimes just the very nature of your product is boring, right? The challenge of the marketer is to overcome that and think creatively and try to get people's attention despite all of that. But I think the biggest tragedy is when you have a brand or a product that could be inherently interesting, but then the mechanisms of the company get in the way. And so the biggest mistakes I've seen with companies, especially as they get bigger and bigger over the years, is they become very risk averse. So they don't want to put anything out there that could offend somebody or be misinterpreted. Totally understandable, but those are some of the things that often are exciting and more interesting to people. They also end up with a lot of compliance regulations and a lot of lawyers in the mix. Their job is not to be creative. Their job is to protect the company and protect the asset. And so they're going to make sure that you're adhering to whatever those regulations are, and your job is to kind of work within those constraints. And that is a very difficult creative exercise, and unfortunately, a lot of marketers just aren't up to that. And so they tend to lean on the most cliche or boring or jargony things to get through. The last thing I would say is committees. So one of the big issues I have seen that turns brands into boring brands is they have to put everything through a series of stakeholders, right? Kind of the most common thing I'll see is, you'll put forward an ad copy or you'll put forward some kind of blog post, and suddenly you have 10 people in the document all making comments and edits. That's just going to result in a much more watered down, much more kind of bland marketing product at the end of the day. So if you want to make a more exciting brand, remove those constraints, stop worrying so much, take some risks, and be willing to let your creative team sort of take ownership and run with ideas. Why will most B2B marketing never reach real humans? I mean, hard to say if that's true or not, but let's take it at face value. Let's say that it doesn't. So if it's not reaching real humans, it's probably because it's boring and dry and just buried in jargon and nonsense, and it's being pushed out through mediums that people tend to ignore, like banner ads or cold, email outreach. So if you want your marketing, especially in B2B, to actually reach real people, you have to create it for real people and do the things that they like speak their language, be informative, try to actually break down these false formality that businesses tend, in corporate America, or corporate world tends to create around language. Break those down, speak plain English, and talk directly to your audience, and that'll give you a better shot at reaching them. If you've got a marketing question, whether it's SEO, social media, email, doesn't matter, drop it in the comments. I'll try to answer it.